Now to a story that will warm the hearts of train buffs everywhere. A piece of South Australia's railway heritage has been saved after more than 2 years of painstaking work by steam engine enthusiasts. Graham Badger and cameraman Chris Lockyer have been following the painstaking process with the Pichi Richi Railway volunteers.
The job was a little bit deceiving. The early days of Quorn, the locomotive was stripped down and there was a reasonable assessment of the boiler and so on. But it wasn't until the engine unit, the frames came to Adelaide and they were drip blasted and tested that the frames had extensive cracking, and it was really at that point we decided that a lot of the components would have to be condemned and rebuilt.
We've reused parts wherever we can, where they could be economically overhauled, but a lot of parts were cracked and it wasn't really a proposition to fix those. And that led us to building new frames, new cylinders, new tube plate patches in the boiler, new smoke box, new boiler cladding, new axle on the rear driving wheel, new tender tank, new tyres on the wheels, and many other smaller new components.
Steam locomotive NM25 is nearing the end of its most important journey. A little over 2 years ago it was rusting in Port Augusta. But now, following the efforts of a dedicated band of restorers at the Panorama TAFE, it's back better than ever, ready to carry the next generation of rail passengers around the state's mid-north.
It's been a real challenge for those involved, but the end result is really almost a new locomotive.
NM25 was built in 1925 and covered hundreds of thousands of miles for the Commonwealth Railways. It even carried troops up to Alice Springs during the Second World War on their way to help defend Darwin.
I was on the Quorn Alice Springs run for years and years. Through the Flinders Ranges, about 330 tonne, and on from RE you could put 430 tonne actually. We'll put it on the GAN this Thursday. What do you reckon, Reg?
On the GAN, yeah.
On the GAN Thursday?
That'd be a good
For
idea.
former train driver Keith Easton and his fellow rail enthusiasts, it's a step back in time to the era of steam when a passenger locomotive would attract a crowd of spectators.
Well, they're alive. A locomotive is alive because it depends so much on nature. Even the choo-choos out the funnel are creating a partial vacuum in the smoke box, and nature being what it is, the air is tearing up through the fire bars to fill that vacuum, and so stimulates your fire. And that's typical of many facets of a steam locomotive. That makes it alive.
Breathing new life back into this loco hasn't come cheap. It's cost more than $500,000 to put it back on the tracks. And long hours, a lot of money to get it to this stage.
Yes, the Society, along with the City of Port Augusta and the South Australian Tourism Commission, have put in extensive funds, not only with the locomotive, but the restoration of track and extension of track from Stirling North, just outside of Port Augusta, into the Port Augusta railway station.
And the restoration work rekindled old trades, such as hot riveting, that had all but disappeared with the steam era.
It needs to be a little more to the left.
NM25 is lucky not to have gone the way of many other old locos.
It's only one of two of the NM class surviving. The other is a static exhibit at the National Railway Museum at Port Adelaide, so it is only one of the two still surviving in the state. The rest were unfortunately scrapped back in the 1960s.
Railway roster clerk Reg Mays managed to halt the work after a phone call from Port Augusta.
He had a team of 4 or 5 welders there with instructions to cut the locomotive up for scrap. I said, oh, there's no way you can do that because it's been donated by the Commissioner, Mr Keith Smith, to the Homestead Park Museum as a static exhibit. So after about a quarter of an hour, they came back from the records office. He said, yes, we have got a letter here. He said, thank goodness you sung out about this. I said, I'll put a stop to that straight away.
It'll take another 2 months to put the finishing touches to it.
The locomotive will be officially returned to service on the 26th of April with our patron Tim Fisher and other invited guests, and then it will start to see regular service operating our Afghan Express service from Port Augusta to Quorn and return.
Would you like to drive it again if you could?
I wouldn't mind driving it. I think I could. I think I could drive it. I just put it under steam and I'll have a go.
What a fantastic project. And let's...
Well, here's a vehicle sure to escape those speed cameras, even though it'll probably build up quite a head of steam once it gets fired up. But we don't think there'll be too many lenses lurking on an old rail line on the fringes of the Flinders Ranges.
The 78-year-old Pichi Richi steam locomotive has been sitting in a shed for the past 2 years, being lovingly restored. More than 100 people have worked tirelessly on the $1 million-plus project, including dozens of volunteers and students from the Douglas Mawson Institute of Technology. Now the old girl's setting off up north to Port Augusta to relive her glory days.
It's just exactly like it was. Yep, just like it was. Yep, my word. And they've done a good job.
89-year-old Keith Easton should know. He sat in the driver's seat for 37 years. The restored locomotive will be the only one of its type operating in South Australia and will use the old Ghan route.
It'll be a great tourist attraction and something that certainly the state and certainly Port Augusta and Quorn have been looking very much forward to.
She'll be back on the tracks next month.